Hello everyone, welcome to another Book Impressions episode here on The Wandering Quill. I am your host, Gabriel Garcia, the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. In today's Book Impressions episode, we'll be reading and reviewing author Rick E. Norris's novel, Angelic War's First Rebellion. Now, this book really intrigued me. Not just simply because of the cover, but more importantly, what was inside the book itself. In the book, there were QR codes that I found. And when I used my phone to read those QR codes, I realized they took me to songs. Yes, that's right, listeners. Inside the book, the author has placed certain QR codes of songs sung by the characters in the story. And I think it's a really nice addition to a novel, personally. It's something I've never seen before, and it's one-of-a-kind thing, and I think it's a nice addition to a story. And it specifically fits this story very well. Now, what really stuck out about this book also for me was the story. Now, this story does have biblical themes as well as biblical characters, in the sense that a lot of the characters from the story are from the Bible. And those characters are the archangels: Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, Raphael, as well as other angels like Azarias, Malachi, Abaddon, and so forth. And it's a very interesting book, and it's the first of a trilogy. Well, it's in a trilogy, I should say. The first is a novella which talks about Lucifer's rebellion and how he started it. And the next book, which I plan to read, is called Angelic War's The End of All Beginnings. And it's truly this book that it really shows, how the rebellion began. And I find it very fascinating. Now, here's what it says officially on the back of the story. Me Deus existus vobis. May God be with you. Have you ever wondered how evil began? Or God gave angels a free will to reject him? The first novel in the Angelic War series, First Rebellion, is a musical novel where the book's characters sing when the reader activates a QR code. It is the epic story of the internal struggles and external battles among the angels for the control of heaven during Satan's rebellion. The first book in a series of unlikely heroes is unlike any other action-adventure fantasy because its setting is in heaven and guided by biblical passages. And I want to stop here for a minute to address to that. Yes, there are biblical footnotes which reference back to a specific verse in the Bible to give more context. So a character will say a certain phrase or act in a certain way because of a situation, and that's usually in reference to a biblical passage or verse in the Bible. And the author does provide footnotes to help the reader understand why that footnote was placed there and what its specific meaning. Azarias and 6 other angels are commissioned by the Lord as the Septimiri to act as guardians and seek out and conquer the rebellion. They speak only to God's guardian cherub, their master, or rather, their, pardon me, the one who's giving them their assignment. They are commanded to offer the rebellious ones a choice of mercy or spiritual warfare. Little do they know that they are up against the most powerful angel of all, Satan and his army, consisting of a third of heaven's population. Which is already a fascinating story in and of itself. Now, before I go into the story, I do want to share that when reading this, I was intrigued of what I might find and how the author would present this story. Because it is written from the Bible, and there have been many other stories that have written about it. Especially about Lucifer's rebellion. I'm sure many of you may have heard the story of Paradise Lost, which was a fictional story which tried to discuss, or at least examine, what caused the rebellion in heaven. Now, this story is biblical in the sense it does use biblical characters, but it is fantasy. So a lot of the places are entirely fictitious. But it does add a lot more, not nuance, but a better perspective of these characters, which I find very fascinating. And one last thing before I go into the story, there are illustrations too, which actually add a nice touch. The illustrations are usually places that the characters go to. Either they're a mausoleum, a coliseum, districts, monuments, sacred sites, and so forth. And with that said, let us begin Angelic Wars, First Rebellion by Rick E. Norris. Chapter 1. The hand blistered deep red as fire scorched its tortured host. Small pale creatures burst from the open cysts to feed on his many sores. Azarias recoiled as the wretched hand groped for his face. The walk through the carpet amberlight fields had always been a source of a peaceful retreat from Alberca's busy center. Not this time. This horrific and inescapable vision stalked him everywhere he went, even in the most remote parts of heaven. Azarias, help me! The voice strained to be heard above the sound of his sizzling arms. Help yourself! Don't let the Creator do this to us. We belong in heaven. You're next. You'll see. Who was this? A putrid cloud of smoke veiled the angel. How could God allow one of Azarias' soulmates to burn? The flames scurried up the victim's transparent wings, shriveled them, emblazed them, and finally devoured them with ferocity. Azarias turned his chin to the mantle above. How could you do this to him? We're here to serve you, to love you. Tears edged his cheeks as the smoke rose, twisting into menacing clouds. He placed his hands over his face. Stop it, Lord, please. Even before he could finish his last word, the vision released him. The aromatic scent of heaven returned. Azarias collapsed, his fingers sinking into the grainy silicone. He wanted to claw the images and the raw broken voice from his mind. How could you? Why would you? Movement on the prismatic horizon caught the corner of his eyes. No! A mass of dark, acrid smoke metamorphosized into a great storm, devouring the skyline as it moved in its direction. This was not heaven. Azarias knew heaven. He knew it from the pastel lavender skies. He knew it from the glistening turquoise brooks. And he knew it from the distant masses dripping with golden amberlight. But not this boiling accretion of rage. Fiery pillars churned and spiraled high into the atmosphere, gutting the tranquility that existed just a moment ago. Azarias scurried to his feet. How had things changed so quickly? First the violent visions, now the hunt by his tempest. Why? Panic propelled him up the dune. The rolling clouds growled as they chased. Flying was out of the question. He needed the Lord's Spirit to fly long distances. And try as he might, he couldn't summon that help. He stumbled and fell. Silicone coated his face, grains cutting into his mouth, suffocating him. Keep moving! Ahead, the beckoning masses, with their embracing alcoves, called him to safety, but he couldn't reach them by foot. He imagined his flesh burning like the angel in his vision, cysts bursting with infection. Again, lightning flashed, fracturing the heavens and casting its image on a turquoise profundo brook in the ravine below him. His heart pounding, he staggered down the other side of the deep dune that sucked at his feet. Golden amberlit flowers on high stalks, neither aware nor oblivious to his fate, parted in response to the Lord's Spirit that always accompanied him. Oh, He tripped. Frantically, he tried to lift his feet out of the dune's craters, but it was too late. The dune won. He threw his arms forward and tugged his chin. He tumbled. His world went spinning before his eyes in a blur of sky, silicone, light, and dark. The slopes seemed to go on forever until he splashed into a small brook of hot spiritual profundo. Snaking between the dunes, it infused energy into his arms and saturated his robes with a turquoise glow. No, no, please, he pleaded with the profundo spirit. I can't. Bask now. He used the simulating jolt to aid him to his feet. When he emerged out of the brook, the turquoise bled out of the robe, returning it to its white color. He shot a glance over his shoulder. The clouds clawed at him with striking distance, their black fingers casting ravenous shadows. He ducked. Each bolt of lightning seemed to burn him, to incinerate his thoughts. This moment choked him, and he could no longer smell the sweet scent of spirit. Azarias couldn't move his wings. The world spun. He fell. His unfaithfulness, that must be it. He was being judged. Lord, please have mercy. He dug his fingers into the silicon and wrapped his rings around his face. He closed his eyes. Why had he let his pride take hold of his spirit? Azarias, do not fear, said a deep voice. Fear was a strange emotion called fear. Azarias labeled this feeling. He did more than label it. His mind dwelled on it. But why not fear? The heavens were crashing upon him. The Lord's Spirit is upon you. The Lord? Azarias risked a minuscule peek outside the haven of his wings. A hazy gray mist surrounded the once serene countryside. He hardly recognized the area. Azarias paused and then climbed to his feet. He unfurled his wings, but without the Lord's Spirit to guide him, he couldn't go far. Was the haze part of the same treacherous cloud? The thunders had stopped. An eerie silence lurked in the dim rays of light in front of him. Azarias stole a step. He waved his arm at the mist. It parted. He squinted. 4 pairs of intersecting wheels hovered before him, just inches above the surface. He froze, refusing to breathe. The wheels were covered with eyes, countless eyes. Maybe he doesn't move. Maybe his white colors would blend into the haze, and they wouldn't be able to see him. Then the eyes shifted and rolled, pinpointing his presence. They seemed to cast daggers into his soul. They knew. Knew he questioned the Lord. Knew he doubted. Knew he had been unfaithful. He covered his face and turned away. The mist, however, didn't climb over him. It didn't fill him with dread. Instead, a strange feeling of peace tugged, pulling back at his fears. Curiosity egged him on, and he turned. This time he did not look into the eyes, but raised his gaze to the pair of bronze legs attached to the wheels. They were similar to his legs, yet emitted a glow so vibrant it refracted the mist around him, and the reflection in the bronze seemed to multiply. The being had 4 wings, not 6. This was not a seraph. The clouds separated. A powerful torso and the silhouette of a head issued from a bronze-edged mist and towered over Azarias. Frenzied spirits of fire spiraled round and round its thumping immensity. Azarias trembled. It spoke. Azarias, I am the guardian cherub of the Creator and a member of the Holy Order of Angels. The voice shook the surface where he stood, almost causing him to lose his balance. It didn't resonate like that of a seraph, with melodic tones, and it certainly wasn't the Lord. The Lord's voice originated softly from within angels with love and compassion, not through energy waves from another source. He risked a full-on look. The face of a giant eagle gazed down from within the clouds. Its piercing, unyielding eyes could only mean one thing. God judged him through this strange being. And yet, fear not. The cherub's head rotated to the face of an ox. Its hot, heaving breath, like a raging bull, seemed to create a stormy vortex. Azarias froze. He tried to imagine where this being hailed from. The level of the holy order of which Azarias belonged didn't have guardian cherubian. This angel must dwell at. Azarias collapsed to the surface. It must dwell at the Lord's throne. He closed his eyes. He didn't know what to say. Thoughts shot through his mind at riveting speed, but none coalesced. He never seen nor addressed anyone by the Lord's throne. Only special angels dwelled at the throne. But he had to speak. The silence cut deeper as he lay there. I am at your service, O guardian cherub. The cherub's head rotated again. Sharp incisors protruded from its mouth now. It struck Azarias with intimidating majesty. It was a lion's face. What kind of being had God sent him? A warm sensation started first with his hands circulating through his body to land with full intensity at his feet. He stiffened as hot explosions detonated throughout his wings. He leaped up. The cherub's eyes shot out beams of light, cutting into Azarias' soul. Some unknown power convulsed his body. His knees buckled and hit the surface again. He wanted to run, but fear paralyzed him. Again, the head of the powerful cherub turned. A beautiful, yet familiar and new face mesmerized him. Hazel eyes, filled with more gentleness than he could ever bear, were set above high cheekbones that framed a kind smile. The beauty caught and drew the fear from him. Heaven always immersed angels in God's joy, but this was different. As he continued to stare into the cherub's eye, he had a sense he might be looking at the likeness of God himself. Azarias, the Lord has chosen you. For what? And why? Shouldn't he be judged? He covered himself with his wings. He had questioned the Almighty too often during his missions. He tried so many times to suppress them, but his inquiries were relentless, just like during his visions when he questioned the Lord's motives in burning the angel. No angel had that authority. He had chosen you because of your inquisitive nature. It is the foundation for your gift of discernment. Because you question, you can discern. That is the reason. Inquisitive? But he had all but doubted the Lord. Even here he wanted to demand an explanation, but only little gaps escaped his lips. Azarias bowed his head. The Lord's will is my desire. The cherub raised 2 of his 4 wings. Azarias noticed his unusual arms. They did not have the seraph's golden radiance laced with scintillating channels. No, the color was softer and the texture more translucent. Azarias, you have found favor with the Lord. There are angels conspiring to reject his will and dwell outside of the Spirit. They have been deceived by a leader who believes he is as great as God. It is the Almighty's will that you seek out these rebellious ones and cast them out of heaven. You will lead God's warriors. The phrases rolled in his mind. He tried to imagine an angel as great as the Lord. Then he shifted to that word, rebellion. Angels didn't rebel. Coldness pierced his soul. The cherub continued. The leader's pride had twisted their spirits and affected their souls. He has tricked them into believing that they are as great as the Lord. This angel thinks of himself as a creator and not as the created. His pride remained unchecked and untested and grew out as a fatal spiritual disease. The only remedy is to expel him from heaven. Azarias' mouth dropped open. An angel could not just will himself from creator to creator, could he? His eyes drifted down toward the wheels again, and this time staring, not seeing. Even as he had digested each of the cherub's accusations, he still could not grasp such a possibility. The cherub glided his wings back and forth. They directed the mist. If this angel and his followers are left unchallenged, their poison will infect the entire order, perverting the holiness of heaven. God's will would no longer be relevant, and his love would no longer be desired by those who rebel. This last explanation made Azarias tremble. His eyes jumped to the cherub's face again. He found his voice. God's will would no longer be relevant? That can't be. Angels need God's will to perform and God's love to exist. It seems impossible that any created being would reject God's love. He furrowed his brow. How could God allow a created being, to think he was God? There must be some misunderstanding. But as he searched the cherub's face, he saw only fierce certainty. No, it couldn't be. The cherub was asking him to save heaven from a false god? To expel him. Azarias bowed. O great cherub, who am I to challenge these angels? I am not of great stature or ability. No response. Azarias looked up and stepped forward, opening his hands. There are other angels more capable and equipped than I. The cherub's gaze burned into him. My gifts are merely discernment and reflection. I do not speak well in front of others. Why would the Lord entrust the ultimate mission to one so flawed? The sound of a choir saturated the mist. Though faint, it resonated deep within Azarias' soul. He recognized the music as the Holy, Holy One song sung at the Lord's throne. He longed to see the throne someday, but as a seraph ranked low in the Holy Order, he could not travel there. Instead, he imagined the beauty of the throne by the music when he walked alone among the mesas. He tried to suppress this elation, so overcome with the magnitude of his mission, but it was no use. The cherub smiled and then whispered, Only the Lord knows the reason. Azarias closed his eyes, still absorbing the spirit's sensation. He has granted you the use of other angels to help you achieve your objective. The Spirit of the Lord will choose an alliance for you. The Lord also expand your gift of discernment to approach omnipresence. The mist parted, exposing a small rectangular object at Azarias' feet. As long as the angels in your command remain the Lord's Spirit, you will be able to observe them through this tome as they perform their missions throughout heaven. However, you will not be able to communicate with your angels when you are not in their presence. Moreover, you will not be able to use the tome as you travel on your own missions. Azarias picked up the grayish film, turning it over in his hand. It slightly eclipsed his open palm and did not boast of possessing any power, but Azarias knew better. God revealed his power in the most unlikely places in heaven. He slipped it into his robe. He looked up, the cherub collapsed his wings, expelling a mist with a clap of thunder. He drew back from Azarias, rescinding the storm with him, and vanished in the distance. The turbulent skies calmed. The radiant glow and sweet scent of the Lord's Spirit were all that were left. But the serenity did not return to Azarias. Squintable loved the amber light that carpeted the Azarias countryside. As he flew through this heavenly plain, these shimmering little flowers parted for him, bowing on their long stalks in reverence to the Lord's Spirit that guided him. As he had done so often before, he agreed to meet Abaddon away from Azarias' great theater. It was no burden to come this far. The Spirit's sweet, savory aroma seemed more apparent out here. The active part of Azarias, like billions of heavenly districts, brimmed with angels working their missions. He just had to escape occasionally to grow closer to his Lord on his own terms. The flat area didn't brag against particular features. Distant, jagged outcropping resembling posted sentries encircled it. The district of Azarias glinted in the distance, marking its precarious presence midway up the side of one of these outcroppings. A bearer of God's good news, Azarias had the gift of a herald. One time he stood at the center of a stadium addressing thousands. The Lord's Spirit infused his message so intensely that jubilant angels nearly stampeded him in their eagerness to start their missions. During such times, his delphinum blue eyes sparkled with excitement. Squintable, on the other hand, had no apparent gifts. At least, in his opinion, he performed his missions joyfully with precision, never asking for more than his share of attention from other seraphim. His stout and impish frame strained to reach an inferior height of 9 feet. Yet he was grateful for his beautiful voice and crystallite skin. Were these his gifts? He wasn't sure. At a distant outcropping, Abaddon rounded a corner. As always, Squintable recognized him with wonder. Abaddon sashayed these days, a signature stride as he walked, swaying his wings from one side with an uncommon gracefulness. Squintable found this recently adopted flair comical. How did he get away with such effect? No matter, he just did. Squintable, meanwhile, would never attempt such an act. Even if he wanted to, his stout frame would not allow it. May Deus existio vobis, the two angels said, greeting each other. May God be with you. Squintable sat and drew circles in these Sicilian particles while he waited for Abaddon to speak. Yet he said nothing. Squintable looked up. Something didn't seem right. Abaddon's face glowed as blank as a semi-barren surface in front of him. I know this will sound foreign to you, my dear friend, Abaddon began, but what I have to tell you has changed my whole purpose of being. Squintable's eyes strained from Abaddon. He was in for another one of Abaddon's long-winded speeches, and this mildly depressed him. You could see angels in the distance flying into Azarias. They may be attending the performance at the Odom Amphitheater. He thought about performances he had attended there. Someday he might find the courage to perform a song he had written. He heard that other angels who performed there had grown closer to God after the performances. Abaddon's voice cut in. He threw his arms out and turned toward Ephesus. I never realized my significance until I destroyed these restrictions, these walls, these things that kept me from becoming what I was meant to be. Humoring Abaddon, Squintable turned back and smiled. What walls, Abaddon? The walls that keep me from understanding the universe. But we don't need to understand. Just to obey. Isn't it enough that we are given full access to the Lord's love, even though we may not understand why we perform some of his duties? That's just it. The Creator prevents us from knowing so many things. How did he create the universe? Or does the future hold? Am I just to serve the Creator? What is my true essence? Squintable rubbed the back of his neck and stood. Prevent? True essence? What was he talking about? The Lord reveals to us reveals to us what we can understand, my friend. Moreover, we must have faith in what he will do with us in the future. Why ask questions about things we may never understand because of our limited ability to comprehend? I am immensely happy with who I am because I know that I am loved by the Lord in the boundless ways and always have access to him through spirit. How do you know that? Abaddon's voice bit too low, with an unfamiliar overtone. How do I know what? How do you know the Creator loves you? How do you know that you cannot understand all heavenly knowledge unless you are allowed to view it? When Abaddon paused, Squintable could feel something seeping into his spirit. Speculation. Lack of trust? Doubt? This hadn't happened before. Abaddon always amused him with his teachings. When Squintable felt lost and insignificant among billions of angels, Abaddon had shown affection and kindness to him. Squintable shook himself. He couldn't let Abaddon detect his uneasiness. Angels don't doubt. He'd hoped that his demeanor didn't give it away. His lack of self-confidence sometimes seeped out when he spoke with Abaddon. This would be nothing new. He looked off at the distant outcroppings where jagged peaks dominated the flat plains. Abaddon continued. We understand these things as mysteries that are meant to be revealed by the Creator, but instead they are secrets that are meant to be kept from you. Squintable tense. Abaddon, how could you mutter such mutinous concepts when you know in your heart that the Lord has provided all the love, understanding, and knowledge that you can comprehend? Has the Creator done that? Abaddon snapped back, eyebrows lowering. Squintable opened and closed his mouth. Of course the Lord has done that. Confusion and agitation filled Squintable about this exchange. This wasn't the Abaddon he knew. Why ask such foolish question? Abaddon kicked a small ethereal sphere away and stepped towards Squintable. You are a submissive little pet that glows with delight every time the Creator calls you to a mission. Don't you get it? Why are you so naive? Why are you so blind? The Creator fooled you into believing this because he doesn't want you to know the truth. Squintable stepped closer. What truth do you mean? That you are as great as the Creator. The reason you have not realized that is because the Creator keeps your true nature from you. Squintable's face heated as he stood only inches from Abaddon's nose. He could never match Abaddon's oratory and debating skills. He had always just accepted what his friend said was truth, but not this time. He had to say something. You speak blasphemy that is not based on truth and wisdom. Abaddon smirked. What if I proved it to you? Prove what? Squintable glared into Abaddon's eyes, now on a fire with passion. Prove that an angel can be as great, beautiful, and powerful as the Creator, whispered Abaddon, as though avoiding an eardropper. As great and powerful as the Creator? How? Squintable cut his voice low. Perhaps an angel could have greater gifts than other angels, but not as powerful as the Creator. Abaddon just smiled. But wouldn't there be knowledge of such an angel? Certainly that information would spread quickly throughout the entire Holy Order. Squintable heard the faintest edge of a panic in his voice. What was Abaddon doing to him? Abaddon peered into Squintable's eyes. His smile grew cold and sinister. I know one, he said, lifting the weight of his eyebrows. You know what? I know of an angel that is as great as the Creator. Squintable mouthed the words as his eyes searched the ground for understanding. As great as the Creator? Abaddon's face glowed with excitement. This angel is not merely an angel. He defines the Holy Order. He did not hesitate in leaving the Lord's Spirit and discovering himself. As the most beautiful angel that has ever graced heaven, he has found his true essence and offers to share his secret with any angel who has the courage and wisdom to believe it. Squintable's breathing intensified. Was Abaddon speaking the truth? He had never known any deceit in heaven. If Abaddon was in the Lord's Spirit, he could not speak in non-truth. But how could an angel be as great as the Lord? Abaddon pointed to the district. I can take you to him in another district. What? I don't understand. We can only travel between districts where the Lord's Spirit takes us. He felt Abaddon wanted to steer the debate to God's motive for creating an organized heaven for the betterment of his subjects, but this debate would be silly. Squintable wanted to turn his back and walk away, but something kept him from doing so. Abaddon clasped his hands together. This is the first truth I will teach you. You can go anywhere you desire by the power of your own spirit. You don't need the Creator Spirit. You have the power within you to go anywhere you desire. How could he go wherever he desired? What did he mean by the power of his own spirit? No, I will not defy the Lord's Spirit, Squintable declared, finally tearing away from this morbid curiosity. Defy? Abaddon replied with surprise. What's anything about defy? The Creator gave you the ability to make a choice and all you would be doing is exercising the free will that he gave you. Squintable turned back toward the Ephesus amphitheater, unable to face Abaddon. But wouldn't that bring consequences from the Lord? Squintable could feel Abaddon's hot breath on the back of his neck. That's just it. There are no consequences. The great angel has already proven this by being the first being to exercise his will independent of the Creator. If he were in error, as you argue, when the Creator has stopped him, why would the Creator give him the ability to exercise his free will if it wasn't meant to be exercised? We all know the Creator creates perfection, and he wouldn't have created free will by mistake unless, using the Creator, made an error in judgment. Squintable turned. Abaddon, you know the Lord is perfect in all ways. To make a statement like that is preposterous. Exactly, my friend. Then why wouldn't the Creator inform you of free will and ability to travel where you desire? Did he just conveniently forget to tell you? Abaddon had a point, when he clearly enjoyed making by the way he stepped back, his arms folded. Why hadn't the Creator informed him he could travel under his own powers? Perhaps exercising free will was not an act of defiance, but how was it done? In addition, what about this super angel? Would it be an act of defiance to meet this being? A small introduction would simply just satisfy his curiosity. If God did not want him to go, he would certainly stop him. Squintable sighed. I'll go meet the super angel, not because I think you are correct in everything you say, but because I want to prove you wrong. You must be mistaken. Very well then. I want to be fully informed about such matters. Let's go. I don't want to miss this entrance. Entrance? Squintable looked around. From where? Okay, so how do I move under my own spirit? Squintable recalled the vision from the earth. Flap my wings as the birds do in the material world. Take my hand and walk with me, my friend. As Squintable took hold of Abaddon's hand, a sense of uneasiness pricked him. Now think of yourself. Focus on yourself and not the Creator. You are in control. You are capable, and you are righteous in what you are doing. You cannot do wrong in heaven. Squintable closed his eyes. His wings grew cold, starting at the tips and then moving towards his back. He lurched and then moved forward in a steady motion. The cold grew so intense, it burned. Even his wings, legs, and arms burned by this intrusion. Maybe you should stop. But how? Uneasiness washed over him, and then he developed into a sickening feeling that consumed his spirit. Yet, even as he traveled, he experienced a measure of freedom, power, and independence. Maybe he was making the right decision. As the two sojourned across heaven, Squintable stared at the unfamiliar surroundings. Jagged outcroppings reached toward them as they passed deeper into other districts. As he descended to the field, Squintable gasped, Abaddon! Look! The amber light stalks did not sway away. We are passing directly through the flowers like they're vapors. Abaddon shot him a glance and smiled. Squintable placed his hand over his mouth. What had he done? And we will stop there. Now, overall, this book is an easy 5 out of 5 for me. I love the story. I love how the author has created this kind of philosophical debate about free will and considering oneself above. And it's a very interesting story. And so far, it is almost like a drama. It's a drama where we're trying to figure out this big question about free will and being independent and no longer relying, at least in the book sense, the Lord's Spirit. Now, some may not be into the more heavily religious undertones of the story, and I can see that. I can see how this may be a turnoff to some readers, and that's completely fine. However, if you're interested in this book, I highly recommend reading it. The characters are very fleshed out. They are very organic. They are given very human situations, questioning one's faith, their own identity. And ultimately, as I mentioned, this is an easy 5 out of 5 for me. I read the whole book a few days ago, and it is quite the philosophical journey. You will not be disappointed. So, with that, listeners, this concludes another Wandering Book Impressions on the podcast. That makes 4 books out of 5. The last book I have left to read will be up soon. I hope you have enjoyed these books and the content I am creating. Make sure to like and subscribe and let me know what is your favorite book that I have read thus far from the Festival of Books. Thank you everyone for your support. And please go and check out the Gathering on Barnes & Noble if you'd like to purchase a copy. Or if you would like to read the free version, head over to Inkit. You will be able to read the first 3 chapters for free. However, to read the full book, you will need to make a free account. It's easy to do. And Please let me know your thoughts and comments about the book, and just send your love and support. Thank you, everyone, for your unanimous support on the other platforms that I have, and I wish you all a wonderful Friday. This is the Wandering Scribe and Wandering Quill, signing out.